The Soviet Union itself is no more.
The United States military has begun strikes.
Light them all up.
Считаю, что для современного мира однополярная модель не только неприемлема, но и вообще невозможна.
Народные республики Донбасса обратились к России с просьбой о помощи. Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Is taking chips from dishwashers and refrigerators to fix their military hardware. Russia's industry is in tatters.
Putin is now isolated from the world more than he has ever been.
Hello, and welcome back to another Sunday episode of the DD Geopolitics live show. Chris is on the final leg of a trip all the way to Lugansk in the Donbass, and we will get to his trip a little bit later and what went on there. But first and foremost, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a very long day. You know, I've been up for, I think, 36 hours with limited sleep. It was a very, very, very long trip today, and a very good one, and a very tough one, given what happened. I wish it was under better circumstances, but it was a very important story to bring to the world. So I'm happy to be here, and I just came from the airport just 2 hours ago, a little over 2 hours ago. So
yeah, straight from the airport to the stream. So we're here for you guys. But so I was thinking, like, okay, first and foremost, I have my Tottenham Hotspur. We won the losers championship today, so I'm celebrating winning the losers championship. How many Tottenham Hotspur fans in the chat? Come out, you Spurs. But anyway, I've been thinking about this Massey election and thinking about just elections in general and election funding. And I saw a video earlier this week and kind of tied all of it together. I'm not going to play it because I think there's copyrighted material in it, and I hate even dealing with YouTube. But obviously, OnlyFans. You guys obviously know what that is. I'm sure you shuddered at me even mentioning the word, but that platform obviously makes billions of dollars and takes 20% cut from young women, mostly Western women, selling explicit content of themselves online. The majority owner, before he passed away, was a man named Leonid Radvinsky, a Ukrainian-American Jew. He died in March, suddenly at 43. He was worth $4.7 billion when he died. He personally took $1.8 billion in dividends from OnlyFans, according to internal documents from The Lever. Radvinsky pledged $11 million to AIPAC after October 7th, making it the single largest contribution on the list. Afterwards, he tried to hide it, naming himself Mr. Anonymous, but they were able to trace it back to him through wire transfers anyway. When confronted, he denied it, but he couldn't explain why his name was in the wire transfers. So why I'm like thinking of this, it's like, we're inundated with just disgusting content, and young American women are being encouraged through social media, shows like Euphoria on HBO. I don't know if you probably haven't heard of the show because you are luckily in Russia. There's a show.
Oh, I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Okay. So there's a show on HBO for our viewers who who don't give their hard-earned money to HBO. There's a show called Euphoria. It's based on an Israeli show. Obviously, it's produced by Israelis and Ukrainians in Hollywood. But they produce it, and Euphoria is based this season. It's basically about young girls coming of age, being horrendously degenerate teenage girls. And this season is about one girl's journey to become an OnlyFans star. And it paints it in this insanely normal light. It's like fetish work and all kinds of degrading stuff. So young American women are being encouraged through social media and shows like Euphoria and influencer campaigns like that. I won't even say their names, to sell their bodies online. And then that money goes to AIPAC, one of the organizations that just spent $32 million to unseat Thomas Massey. So just thinking about like how sick that cycle is, where like our young women are basically unknowingly funding our own political demise. It's wild.
It is wild. It is wild.
And then you draw a parallel immediately to, because of course I'm doom and gloom, immediately to Jeffrey Epstein, who trafficked young American women and used them to blackmail American politicians to control American foreign policy. So Radvinsky exploits young American women through the screen, not an island, and he used the profits to fund the lobby. Different method, same result. American women exploited, American democracy corrupted, and the same group of people seem to benefit. And we are the people who lose.
Think about it this way. So, of the same power structure, one group mass kills women and children. Mm-hmm. Gaza, in Iran, in Lebanon, in places like that. Now in Starobelsk, in the Lugansk People's Republic. One of the same power structure, another faction traffics women, exploits them, rapes them, and another group then has them feel quote unquote empowered by selling themselves. But in all cases, the same powerful structure, ruling class, elite, Epstein class, they are the ones benefiting from it. They murder, they traffic, they do all sorts of abuse and harm, and they sell it in different packages. One group are terrorists and subhumans. The other group are evil and worthy of punishment. And the other group are empowered and should be cherished and celebrated for their quote unquote feminism and their women's empowerment and leaning in and taking advantage of their beautiful bodies to then sell it and commodify it. That's where we're at. We're at commodification, death, and exploitation. This horrific cycle.
And then Thomas Massey was on Meet the Press today. Pretty decent interview, short if you guys have a chance to watch it. But I do have a clip here juxtaposed with some of the sort of AIPAC lobby sponsored propaganda.
That's how much they've bamboozled the people here in Kentucky. They used artificial intelligence to create a video, lifelike video, that showed me checking into a hotel room with AOC and Ilhan Omar and holding hands with them. It was actually very effective on the boomers. But here's the thing, Kristen, that's only going to work for a little bit longer. The boomers are going to, leave this country to the Gen X and the Gen Z and the Gen Y and the millennials. And those folks are the ones that I won overwhelmingly. That makes me really hopeful for this country. They don't get fooled by artificial intelligence, and they check the news. They get news sources like from podcasts and other sources. So they won this race by fooling my voters and expanding the base of people who vote to the uninformed voters. But look, I got 45% of the vote.
Boomers believe that. What is with this weird, sexual undertone of, at Thomas Massey? Well, not even undertone, it's an overtone, while they're committing, the most disgusting sexual degeneracy behind closed doors and profiting off of it. It's just wild.
But can we speak up, you have this kind of AI slop, Thomas Massey in a throuple or whatever. You have Rabbi Shmuley when his daughter selling all these kind of kosher sex products. You have them raping Palestinians using dogs and objects and sticks and the most horrific things. And you have them wearing lingerie in Gaza and Lebanon and things that, what is going on?
What is going on? What is going on?
I don't see Russian soldiers acting in this way in the liberated territories.
No. I've never seen them put on anybody's clothes.
I never saw Iranian soldiers do this. When I fought in Syria, none of us ever did something like this. What is going on? That's what I want to know.
It's disquieting, to say the least. It's grotesque. This type of stuff makes me incredibly uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable even talking about euphoria. That's how much of a prude I am. But I'm this is undeniable. I have a really big issue with OnlyFans and that sort of culture that surrounds it. So this being utilized to then feed into our elections and then kind of manipulate the things that we report on. It's just, I guess it's more par for the course. Yeah. Anyway, let's try to get through the news. I'm trying to be as up to the minute as possible. Chris probably has no clue what's going on because he just got off the flight. But the Iran talks are, before I hopped on the stream, they were falling apart. And now I'm hearing from the New York Times that there is a preliminary agreement. Who the heck knows? What we do know is that this entire thing has split what's left of the party, what's left of the MAGA movement in half. So I just want to re-show this clip that we showed last week. Remember this and keep it in mind.
What did you say to Prime Minister Netanyahu about Iran and how long to hold off on strike?
He's fine. He'll do whatever I want him to do. He's a very, very good man. He'll do whatever I want him to do, and he's a great guy. To me, he's a great guy. Don't forget, he was a wartime prime minister, and he's not treated right in Israel, in my opinion. I'm right now at 99% in Israel. I could run for prime minister, so maybe after I do this, I'll go to Israel, run for prime minister. I had a poll this morning. I'm 99%, so that's good. But no, he's a wartime prime minister, and I just don't think they treat him well. I think they have a president over there that treats him very poorly.
You're on the same page with him on Iran?
Yeah.
I just want everybody to keep that in mind. Okay. And also don't forget, Trump's approval rating here is in the trash. And so for him to sit here and say, I have 99% approval rating in Israel is him telling you he doesn't care about the approval rating here. But he did say that they're in lockstep with Israel, with Benjamin Netanyahu, who wants to continue the war in Iran, obviously. So here's what we have from today. We have the New York Times, and this is obviously from earlier. U.S. and Iran agree in principle to open up the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. official says. We also heard from the Iranians that no, that's not been discussed, as well as from a few other news sources that the Iranians were told to ignore everything that Trump says, that it's just for public consumption.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we're sort of left. We have Benjamin Netanyahu on the deal. Last night, Trump held a massive phone call with, it was Turkey, Qatar,
Bahrain, UAE.
Everybody was on the call. And then
Saudi.
and then he obviously had to
Egypt,
call
Jordan.
Benjamin Netanyahu. Yeah. Sisi and Abdullah. Yeah. He had to immediately call Benjamin Netanyahu following. I spoke with him about the memorandum of understanding. I expressed my deep appreciation to President Trump for his unwavering commitment to Israel's security, including during Operation Roaring Lion, etc. President Trump and I agreed that any final agreement with Iran must eliminate the nuclear danger. That means dismantling Iran's nuclear enrichment sites and removing its enriched nuclear material from its territory. President Trump also reaffirmed Israel's right to defend itself against threats on every front, including Lebanon. The partnership between us and our two countries has been proven on the battlefield and has never been stronger. My policy, like President Trump's, remains unchanged. Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. Trump went on a tirade, jibber-jabbering about Barack Hussein Obama, something about a deal. Nobody knows our deal. Nobody's even seen it, et cetera, et cetera. I don't really know what to make of all of this, because we have Benjamin Netanyahu messaging one thing and the media messaging the media is optimistic. I tend to lean towards what Benjamin Netanyahu is saying. What say you, Chris?
I would tend to agree, and I'm leaning in that direction. I think that this is totally, in some ways, schizophrenic, bipolar. Nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's frustrated. Nobody knows how to read, the tea leaves or anything like that. There's no rhyme or reason for anything that's going on right now. I think the Iranians are flustered. I think the Pakistanis are also like, what's going on? Last night, it felt like we were like hours or minutes away from a deal being announced. Then today, it was like, actually, we're moving away further and further away from a deal back to kinetic action. And now it's like, oh, maybe we have a deal. And it just doesn't, we don't know. Plus, we have history to teach us. In the past 2 attempts for negotiations, both of them ended in kinetic action.
Right.
Again. So I think the Iranians are thinking to themselves, well, I mean, are they serious or are we headed? That's why the state of readiness of the Iranian armed forces is at the highest level. And everybody's prepared for a resumption of the hostilities if the United States, of course, doesn't agree and eventually wants to open up the strait or force Iran into negotiations by force. But they won't be successful. I think you and I both know that, and our viewers and listeners understand that there is no way to force Iran by force.
No, and I think we just translated a video. It wasn't Ismail. I can't remember who said it, but they said there is no military solution for Iran. So
there isn't.
So from the New York Times, the United States and Iran, this is Justin, the United States and Iran have reached an agreement in principle on a preliminary deal that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz and commit Iran to disposing of its stockpile of highly enriched uranium, enriched to 60%. The deal still requires approval from President Trump and Iran's supreme leader. Under the framework, Iran would clear mines from the strait and allow free passage of commercial shipping, while the U.S. would lift its naval blockade of Iranian ports. Iran would also be allowed to resume oil sales. A 60-day ceasefire extension is part of the package, with broader nuclear issues deferred to later talks. No final agreement has been signed.
Again, very just kind of nebulous. We don't really know. A deal's possible. It's going to be signed. I don't know. In my estimation, I am not so sure that we are actually going to have a signed deal at this point. I think that there might be a resumption of a very fast-paced hostile phase again, maybe like a few days or a week-long bombing campaign, and then let's go back to negotiations. But I think that what people are understanding is that the markets have not yet fully revealed the damage, the economic damage that this has done. And I think that we're still a few months out from feeling the full effects of the Ramadan war. And I think people are waiting for that and trying to figure out where this is headed. But I will say, if action is taken, I think the markets are going to go through a period of extreme volatility, which I think will affect every country and every market around the world.
This post is from today. If I make a deal with Iran, it will be good and proper. Again, ranting about Obama. So, and then more recently, he posted this, this doesn't really bode well for the talk.
Right. Again, how is this in any way in the service of peace? Like, okay, let's make a deal. And this wasn't the only post. He had another post of him going adios and the Iranian Navy getting blown up by aircraft. So once again, like, what is going on?
He's so weird and like just cringe. I guess then that just is that. I don't know any more than you do. When you were just on a plane for a few hours, because it's all up every minute it changes, and then Trump posts something on whatever. But let's move on to more important topics than Trump's mood swings, which is the strike on the school in Lugansk, which I'm just going to turn it over to you, Chris, and we could cover this as you wish, and let me know. I'll cue these assets up for you.
Sure, and let me just take a look so I can make sure that we have everything. Let's go through. Let's go through and take a look first at the destruction. Let's do that destruction edit. Then we'll look at the memorial, and we'll talk as we go through. But I want to first preface this by saying that in the past 72 hours, there was a strike, a Ukrainian strike on a university, which is kind of like a teaching school, a pedagogical school, kind of like a technical, professional school for people to become, engineers and teachers and all that. And this was in Starobelsk, Lugansk People's Republic. And I visited it today. So we'll get to, but basically Maria Zakharova announced, the foreign ministry spokeswoman of the Russian Federation, basically said, look, we're going to send a team of foreign journalists. And I was part of that team of foreign journalists that traveled early this morning for the first time ever to the Donbass via plane. We went by military plane, escorted by Russian fighter jets, which was a tremendous honor for me. I wish not under these circumstances, but I was joined by friends of our show and dear friends of mine personally, Rick Sanchez and Shea Bose. There were other journalists from all over the world, from Al Mayadeen, journalists from Greece, journalists from Latin America, and of course a lot of Russian journalists and war correspondents who were there. And let's get started. So basically what ended up happening was Ukraine's forces targeted this school, this university, with upwards of a dozen drones and possible missiles. We still don't know exactly what transpired, but it was a tremendous amount of targeted strikes at this school. The school was housing students in the dormitories and in some of the buildings that were sleeping at the time. It was nighttime, and the attacks took the lives of 21 students at this point, and dozens of others who are critically injured. And I can tell you that being on site, you could still smell, number one, you could still smell the charred, burning ruins. You could still smell some of that explosive material. For those who have ever been in a war zone, and I've been in many, you can smell that. And also you smelled the rotting flesh of human beings. And there were areas where there was still blood. And it was, extremely, I don't know. I mean, having once you experience this kind of sensory experience around death, it was immediately, it hit us all. So I took some videos of that, but the area where there was a blanket that was blood soaked was where that video of the woman who recognized her child when they lifted up the blankets. It was really, really hard to be there, having seen that video and then being there and seeing the blankets that were still there. So, of course, Russia responded, but let's start. We'll go.
Let's let people take a look. And just so you guys know, so this was on the night of the 21st into the 22nd. 86 teenagers aged 14 to 18 were asleep at the time, with at least three waves of drones strikes beginning at 2200. 16 Firepoint FP drones hit the site itself. You said the death toll has now risen to 21, and there are still children trapped under the rubble. At least 3, up to I think over a dozen was the last update that I.
There were all the rescue efforts have finished. So all the rest. This is what when we were on site. It was they had just concluded everything just a few hours before. But Murad Gazdiev of RT, who's a friend and a war correspondent since the beginning, really since 2014, he said that he was on site and could hear the screams of the children under the rubble. And slowly over the course of hours, as they tried to remove the rubble, the screams died out. And so many of those kids who were under the rubble ended up dying. So, but he was on site, and it was a very visceral a conversation, an emotional one, when he was saying that he was there and you could hear the kids, they couldn't get to them in time. So yeah, let's take a look here at the destruction edit, and then we'll go through some of these videos and come back. So you can just see there were approximately, we counted about 8 or 9 buildings completely destroyed. That's how extensive this attack was.
You're just getting back from a trip to Iran, where you obviously were privileged enough, maybe not the best word, to visit Minab. And now you're coming, and it must be so surreal for you to go from one that was much larger, obviously, one massacre of children, to another, by what we know, both of us and most of our viewers, is just the same regime.
Absolutely. I talked about this in Russian media, and I talked about this on Rick Sanchez's show. We're going to have the clip coming out tomorrow. But I said, look, I just came back from Minab, where a primary school, was targeted by multiple U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles. And now I'm at a school just like 3 weeks later, and it's been targeted by Ukrainian drones that had Starlink systems all on them to guide them to kill these young kids. I mean, that is what we are dealing with. We are dealing with the same collective West targeting and murdering civilians in Iran, in the Donbass, in the Russian Federation territory, further afield like Kursk and Belgorod and other places, Bryansk, in Gaza, in Lebanon, everywhere we're looking, we're seeing it. So I tried to make that connection so people understood, and it was very powerful. The Russian media really were very interested in this sort of analysis. But it's the truth. The same criminals, the same war criminals are doing it at every step of the way, in every front of this war on really the global South. This is a war to maintain imperial hegemony and dominance.
It's just so surreal. that they did that they happened that close together, and we'll get more into it, the lack of coverage in the West, but that the lack of the parallels out here are just we'll talk about it more, but first I want to take a moment to show the memorial that's already been set up.
It was really hard. We saw, we have some video clips, but we saw not distant family members and friends and neighbors who came out to speak to us. But it was very hard. There were a lot of tears, a lot of emotions. It's really, I mean, these were just kids. What's even harder, what's even more upsetting, and I don't know if we have the media asset for this. Yeah, let's go to where they ask, where is the BBC?
Yeah, exactly.
А где BBC? Где CNN? Где представители Токио? Где их журналисты? Они даже объяснения не могут грамотно подобрать, чтобы не приехать. Они не приехали. А почему? Они просто боятся увидеть правду. Они ее не хотят видеть и не хотят ее слышать. Представитель Украины, господин Мельник, на заседании Совбеза ООН говорит, что? Он говорит о том, что это инцидент. Вы что инцидентом называете, господин Мельник? Убийство этих детей – это для вас инцидент.
CNN was on vacation. It's just so.
Listen, the BBC and the CNN were invited by the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to come to the site with us. Mm-hmm. They both declined. Mm-hmm. Japanese media barred their journalists.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
Not allowed to come. And many other foreign journalists from Europe were not allowed by their countries to come. What are they hiding? Why not come? I thought journalism is the search for truth. I thought somehow these journalists were the ones who are going to expose the crimes, who are going to bring the truth to their viewers and listeners. But as I said on Rick Sanchez's show, which you'll see tomorrow, we're going to post it. And I think it's a very important episode. I said that these are not journalists. These are stenographers for war criminals. These are stenographers for empire. These are stenographers for the worst barbarity that we have seen in our time. And so in that way, they're not journalists. I have much more journalistic freedom working here than I would ever have in the US. Why? Because in the US, in the UK, especially in the countries of the European Union and the NATO countries, you are a tool, you are an instrument of the political elite. You are an instrument of their foreign policy. And so therefore, why are you going to go to this area, this site, where your government's intelligence, arms, supplies have helped to perpetrate this atrocity? You can't spin that. You cannot spin that. Even though now the Latvians, the Lithuanians, and many other countries have tried to spin this as it is Russian disinformation, it's propaganda. In fact, Russia hit this itself. Russia had veered UAVs into this site that were Ukrainian. Are you kidding me? You're telling me that Russia took all of these UAVs and then targeted their own university and killed their own students? How stupid do you think we are? You see, we're not stupid because this is not the first time this has happened. And this has not happened since 2022. This has been ongoing since 2014. 12 years of atrocities against civilians in the Donbass. 10,000 plus, near 20,000 plus civilians have been casualties of the war crimes of the Ukrainian fascist regime and their mercenaries and Western sponsors and allies. That's the truth. That's the reality. And the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, listen, we were on with the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs team today. Everybody said, we're open. Anybody can come. No problem. They don't have to agree with anything. I mean, the BBC has an office. Steve Rosenberg is in Moscow. He didn't show up. There are a lot of Western media teams that are in Moscow. Nobody showed up. Nobody.
It's just so startling to me. And this isn't a slight against anybody, so forgive me, and I don't mean any offense. They allowed Western journalists, well, I don't know, the Western journalists went to Manab, excluding our independent Western journalists. Western journalists went to Manab. I'm startled by the lack of any coverage of the strike on Starobelsk. I'm startled by it.
Me too.
And I am contrasting it with, now I think Manab got a lot of coverage, relatively speaking, not enough because obviously the tragedy. But this is getting none at all. Not a peep. And for Japan to make it illegal, and obviously the Euro bros came out immediately calling it fake. Some call it AI. I guess those smells that you smelled were AI, were put into a virtual reality helmet and taken on a trip. But they didn't do that. They obviously blamed Iran for Manab, but other than that, it's really startling to me because it's almost like they hate Russia more than they hate Russians, I should say. They hate Russians more than they hate Iranians. There's an air when they talk about Iran, like we have to save the people from this government. Here, there's not even any of that. Or you can't even get any of that level of propaganda out of them. They hate Russians. They really hate Russians. Russians do not matter. They matter less than Iranians. And that's really not saying a lot for our mainstream media. That's crazy to think about.
No, there's a lot. This Russophobia is at the highest levels really since the Cold War, and maybe even higher in some parts. And I think that's something that we really have to focus on. By the way, I mean, for the Ukrainian government, we have to note these are still Ukrainians, quote unquote, right? But many of them were Ukrainian citizens in 2014, right? They have since changed their citizenship to the Russian Federation, but they're killing their own people. This is also a civil war. This is a brotherly war. This is a war that is trying to wrench the people from their history, their culture, their traditions, their religion, everything, their values, all of it. So that's even worse. They're killing their own.
I'm really stuck on this like lack of any, I'm just contrasting the two, how much they really despise Russians and do not care. And when you think about who runs the media and who runs the United States, it's obviously the Zionists for the most part and Trump. And the Zionists sympathize more with Iranians than they do with Russians. What does that tell you? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. Okay, let's go through some more of these assets. And this is again from the site. The same woman is speaking. This is Russia's Human Rights Commissioner. I can never. Lantratova. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Пишут о том, что работали ПВО, что якобы ПВО сбили эти БПЛА. Ну, послушайте, чтобы ПВО сбили эти БПЛА, во-первых, рядом должны быть военные объекты, которых здесь просто нет. Это первое. А во-вторых, 16 БПЛА, которые 3 реактивными волнами летели, каждый понимает, что это просто невозможно было. Это было целенаправленное убийство детей. Так это и называется.
You were there. How close is the same thing with Manab? They tried to say, oh, this is right next to a base. We had you guys go there. And even the New York Times went there and said there's nothing. How close is this to anything, any military installations or anything?
The closest military installation was about 45 minutes away.
Driving. So at least a good 30 kilometers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Nowhere
Nowhere
close. This was a small rural town with a university that was founded in the 1920s, and it was the most quaint kind of, Fiddler on the Roof-esque. We were joking, when we were getting there, that the whole area just reminded you of something out of the movies. The rural part of the Donbass, very nice. The buildings were older. It was very beautiful, and everybody knows each other. Very small community. We walked around the entire area like in 20 minutes.
Feels really deliberate, like Manab.
Yeah, for sure it was deliberate. No doubt about it. And what I want to show now, what I'd like to show now is the drone parts. And of course, what I really want to show, we're going to show you now.
Some more similarities between the West and, the attack on Manab and the attack on Russia.
To give their own evaluation of what happened here.
And I'll just quick play the video you want to play.
Пострадало более 40 тысяч человек. Они говорят, что они борются якобы за свою территорию, якобы за граждан. Но послушайте, они их делят на первый и второй сорт. Украинские журналисты называют жителей Донбасса генетическим мусором.
Over 12,000 civilians were killed and 40,000.
So there you have it.
There you have it. That was video. Those are all my videos from today. And you saw Starlink terminal. And they had a bunch of different Starlink components and things like that. But I made it very clear in my videos. This is the responsibility, and the war crimes rest also on Elon Musk, on his companies, and on the United States for providing the intelligence, the know-how, the technical capabilities to carry something like this out. It would not be possible without the US's support. And I listen, sometimes people are like, okay, well, we can't badmouth Trump because we're having some peace talks. Fuck that. And
who said that?
No, some people say it. Some people are like, oh, well, we are, we got to be careful. We don't want to no, I'm not being careful. I don't have to be careful. Trump's a criminal, and Trump is responsible for the death of civilians in the Donbass and in Crimea and in the other parts of the Russian Federation. That's just a fact. Trump's first term helped to train, his administration helped to train Azov, Georgian Foreign Legion, Pravi Sector, and all these other neo-Nazis and fascists and nationalists in Ukraine. Yes, I'm sorry. That's just a fact. That's a fact. So
we have Putin's statement about the attack.
Let's go to President Putin.
Удар не был случайным. Он прошел в 3 волны, 16 БПЛА, в одно и то же место. Конечно, детали мы будем расследовать. Они будут расследованы. Выводы соответствующие будут сделаны. Но нам понятно, еще раз это становится очевидным, с кем мы имеем дело, с кем мы боремся и за что. Это и есть проявление неонацизма. Это еще раз подтверждает террористический характер киевского режима. Еще раз хочу в этой связи, я уже делал это, обратиться к военнослужащим Вооруженных сил Украины. Не выполняйте преступных приказов нелегитимной, проворовавшейся хунты. Иначе вы сами становитесь соучастниками этих преступлений.
Strong messaging.
Very strong messaging and very much on point about the nature that people now are saying, oh, well, where's the special military operation going? What's happening? People, some doom and gloom, some blackpilling in some of our circles. The Russians still understand this is an existential fight against neo-Nazism, against fascism, and against this corrupt and terroristic junta in Kiev. That's it. That's what they're fighting against.
Do you have Maria's response to the statement about this? And then we will show Russia's response.
The Kiev regime operates from the position of a terrorist cell, a cell with an international component, as it is funded from abroad. We are talking about sponsorship by countries of the Western minority that provide arms, financial, and political support. Kiev's ideology is absolutely neo-Nazi, based on segregation along national, linguistic, and cultural lines. But they target the most vulnerable categories, children of all ages, literally from toddlers to school children, and from school children to teenagers. This logic is animalistic, although probably few animals would choose to target children. It is hard to recall anything like this happening in the civilized world. The only comparable period in modern history is the years of the World War II. During the era of Nazism and fascism, it was children who were killed and experimented upon. They were killed, tortured in concentration camps. Sometimes they were killed for no reason at all, solely on the basis of nationality. As was the case, for example, in Kerch, when German Nazi troops took schoolchildren outside the city as if for a picnic and distributed pies filled with potassium cyanide. This is forever inscribed in history as absolute dehumanization. The same absolute dehumanization is happening now, as the Kiev regime is deliberately killing children. We regularly comment on this, but we see no reaction from the international community, from relevant international organizations, from all those who deal with childhood issues. It is as if this topic does not exist. Moreover, these are largely the very same structures that provide a platform for Zelensky and his regime to spread fakes about Russia supposedly abducting children. But when it comes to the killing of children, for some reason, on these very same international platforms, everyone turns away and pretends that there is no such a problem. And this is not a problem, this is tragedy. Those countries that call themselves supposedly civilized are allocating enormous sums of money to support a terrorist regime that deliberately kills children.
Always poignant. And I'll just play the UN statement just for good measure.
Это преднамеренный удар по гражданскому объекту, где учатся и проживают дети, нанесенный в ночное время, когда общежитие было заполнено, был явно совершен с целью максимального количества жертв. Согласно международному гуманитарному праву, это является военным преступлением. Удар не мог быть случайным. 3 волны беспилотников били в одно и то же место. Попадание БПЛА по колледжу не могло быть результатом работы ПВО или РЭБ, как это тут же начали утверждать в Киеве. Никто из находившихся в здании не принимал и не мог принимать участие в боевых действиях, а рядом с колледжем нет никаких военных объектов. Атака по спящим детям – очередное свидетельство трусливой, террористической, античеловеческой сущности киевских властей, которые, терпя поражение на поле боя, в своей агонии бьют по святому при попустительстве и замалчивании этих преступлений на Западе.
So I guess since no one, like everyone has said, Masha has said it, the human rights coordinator has said it, and the Benzia has obviously come to the conclusion that no one will react appropriately to this or take the appropriate measures. And so, as Russia always has to, they took it into their own hands. Let's check out Kiev last night. So that's the night of 23rd into 24th, largest bombardment of Ukraine, one of them since the war began. Ukrainian Air Force tracked at least 690 weapons between 1800 and the morning of the 24th. Zelensky immediately cried that this was a terrorist attack, which is hilarious, and said that Russia only targets civilians.
Let's look at the strike.
Look at that. Beautiful.
That is, wow. That is quite the response. I think it was a total of 111 missiles were used.
With at least 2 Oreshnik, 2 Kinzhal, 30 Iskanders, 54 cruise missiles, over 600 assorted attack drones, etc., etc., etc.
Wow. I mean, listen, Russia works very hard to not target civilians, civilian infrastructure. This is a war of liberation for Russia. This is a war of denazification. It's not a war of conquest. And the Ukrainian people, for them, are brothers and sisters. They are the same people for them. So that's very important to note and understand, because some people are like, well, why doesn't Russia just go in there and finish the job? Because they're not Israel. Because they're not Israel. Because for them, Ukrainians are not Amalek. For them, Ukrainians are their own. So I think people should understand that. And that's why even Putin continues, as you saw in his statement, to reach out to the members of the armed forces of Ukraine to say, don't listen to their orders. Lay down your weapons. Come to us. Resist the Ukrainian fascist regime. That's the truth.
So let's take a look at, somebody asked, of course, what is the target list? Here's the map from our friends over at Rebar. In business parks, aircraft plants, relay and automation plant in Kiev, a facility that manufactures instruments and control and measure equipment in the Shevchenko district. A post office was hit and explosions near the SBU headquarters. They also targeted an area around the metro station where missiles and drones struck the Artem plant and the vicinity of the AFU ground forces headquarters. I also heard they hit the Maidan Square.
Yes.
Oh, which is interesting, because wasn't there a Nazi parade in Maidan Square the other day?
Yeah, there was.
Nice little message Russia sending. Speaking of messages, Belarus sent a message not too long ago by hosting their own nuclear drills. I don't have any clips, but I did post them on a large account. Of course, Lukashenko always talks a wonderful amount of crap. So there's that. And then this happens. And then Oreshnik is used in retaliation to this strike on the school. And what happens? Europe freaks out and Macron calls Lukashenko. This is the first time Macron has called Lukashenko in 4 years. He called him. So I think that, what do you think? Does this move things at all in this sort of stalemate of diplomacy with Russia and Europe? I know that Russia has said we don't want Europe even involved in the peace negotiations, but now Macron is sort of reaching out to, he can't reach out to Putin. So I guess he's sort of reaching out to the next best thing, or as close as he can get, which is Lukashenko, without blowing the whole thing up. What do you make of all of this?
I mean, we were wondering that today, like, where do we go? Is special military operation coming to an end? What does diplomacy look like? What about the Americans? I think everybody is sort of the opinion that there is no deal and that everything's going to have to be solved on the battlefield at this point. They don't see a diplomatic solution being possible. And atrocities like this further confirm the fact that there is no real effort at peace from the Ukrainian side and by their European and Euro-Atlantic sponsors, including the US.
Why are there? I feel like, I don't want to say we're the only ones, but I feel like there's so much of a lack of people drawing parallels to create sort of more solidarity or common cause between Iran and Russia. They're literally in the same situation. They're both reeling from horrible tragedies. This is one of the largest tragedies Russia's had in a while that I can think of in this conflict. Iran is still reeling from the Ramadan war. They're both saying there is no diplomat. They're in a diplomatic stalemate with supposed peacemakers, with people that have broken deals in the past. It's just incredible. Like, it's like a mirror image of one another.
I mean, I draw that parallel, and I think Russian media was very keen on that parallel as well. But I think it's a very good parallel, and I think it's necessary to understand that Iran, Russia, China, which is, by the way, forms a new axis of evil for the U.S. For some U.S. officials, that is the new axis of evil. Russia, Iran, China. DPRK, they don't care about North Korea. They're like, okay, whatever.
No.
But Iran, Russia, and China. We draw the parallels, and our program understands that because we travel to the region, we talk to the people, and we understand the deeper historical threads, the context, everything that has brought us to this point. And with that, we understand that there is an existential fight against Western imperialism and Western hegemony, and that Russia, China, Iran are fighting against that. Whereas in Venezuela, Delcy has turned over and shipped off my good friend Alex Saab to an American dungeon again, and allowed the U.S. to fly in Ospreys into Caracas.
Can you believe it?
Hugo Chavez is rolling in his grave.
The headline today in the New York Times is how Venezuela's new leader rose from pariah to powerful U.S. partner.
I mean, I cannot carry water for Delcy at this point. The Venezuelan Bolivarian revolution, our Chavista friends have failed. There's just, I don't know, we can't cope anymore. It has been an absolute failure.
I don't, you're being too mean. It's just on pause.
It's on pause. So allowing the Americans to come in there, selling off state assets, beginning the liquidation of the country, and sending one of the most important people who helped to protect and save Venezuela in the most difficult times of the sanctions. You sent him back to prison after we campaigned for years that he was not only a Venezuelan diplomat and had diplomatic immunity, that he was a Venezuelan citizen. And Maduro praised him for 2 years, saying how important he was, and that's after he was freed, how important he was, how necessary he was, and how he helped to save the country at its most difficult hour.
What a betrayal. What a heartbreak. But we will save it all for Wednesday, when we will have Larry Johnson on to talk more about Latin America. And we'll get Chris off to bed because he's literally off the plane onto the show. Let's see what our super chats say. Star Lion, have you ever been on another one of the giant cargo planes? I have not, but I have been on large American cargo planes. But yeah.
So yes, I was on an Antonov today, and I have been on an Ilyushin before. Yes.
I've seen Iranians here in Toronto and Western Canada put out slopaganda and claims from family in Iran. It feels like Western liberalism succeeding in propaganda. Am I wrong? People seem so sure of themselves and their convictions.
Baloney. Don't believe any of that stuff. I don't believe they have family in Iran. I have family in Iran. I was just in Iran. All my family members came to see me when I was in Iran. And I can tell you, everybody was super patriotic. Flags, rallies, slogans, you name it. So I don't believe any of that garbage.
You know who's in Iran right now? Uncle Haz. I have to reach out and tell him like how proud we are. Okay, yeah, I have to reach out.
Talking to him.
Okay, good. I've been thinking about him a lot the last couple of days, and I heard him he was speaking, and he sounded in such good spirits, happy to be home. He said he was walking around, so I guess he goes back to Iran and he's just healed. It's magic.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your support, Mary. There's no compromising with evil. There's only one enemy. There's only one enemy. Got it. I can't read. You can't type. We're in this together.
That's it.
What Ahmadinejad article are you talking about? Because there was one where they said they were considering putting him in as leader.
That's the one that they're talking about.
Okay.
Listen, it's baloney. It's trying to create tension. It's strategy of tension there. They're trying to create divisions within Iran. Don't believe any of that. Ahmadinejad was targeted the first day of the war So I don't believe any of that. And actually, I posted after we heard from initial reports that he was dead. It went viral. It had like over 1 million views or whatever.
Thank
but
God.
he ended up surviving, and now he is in hiding basically for his protection. So I don't believe any of that.
I love him. He is like a walking like one-liner machine. He is the greatest. He's the greatest. Okay, I'll go look it up, and we should invite him on soon. We haven't had him on in a while. Jillian Michaels, I watched a little bit of that debate. You guys got to watch. These Zionists are sort of making the rounds doing debates. There is that debate, and there's also the debate between Shabbos. Jillian Michaels, do you remember the show The Biggest Loser, where the fat people would come and they'd lose weight because they were being... She was one of the hosts of that. Somehow she's like a commentator on politics.
How is she commentator? What makes her a commentator? Does she have a master's degree in history or politics? Or
I think it's just because she's Jewish. But yeah, so she went on with Sam Seder. They got into a decent debate. There was also a insane debate between Anna Kasparian and Shabbos Kestenbaum. So yeah, they're sort of being sent out with the talking points and what to say about Thomas Massey and that stuff. You would we could contact her. I highly doubt she would lower herself to come on our show, but we could contact her. Or we could just harass her on Twitter like we harass most of these big accounts. The West Zionists are tired of pretending they're not. I don't know if they're tired of it. They just don't pretend anymore. They really don't care. They don't care. They know that they're horrible. They kind of own it.
Zionist and Nazi alliance. It's a reality. It's a real phenomenon.
Matt talked about it last week. I just posted one of the clips of it where he talks about, the Nazis and like they're together because they're useful. Look at the guy. There's a guy that Trump is pardoning that is was stockpiling weapons for January 6th. He's pardoning and paying these people so he can get ready get them ready for another January 6th. You guys get that, right? They're useful. Let's see. Glenn Greenwald debated 20 neocon. Oh, I'll go look at it. I love watching stuff like that. And Glenn Greenwald can be really hilarious to watch. He's very sassy when he wants to be. I know. We're working on it. We do and we don't and we do, we don't. We gotta push. Let me tell you. So I was speaking to a Russian girl today, and we were talking about some of the news, and we were researching stuff that's going on in Latin America. And just some of the stuff that's happening in Honduras, just that Trump is pardoning a cocaine kingpin, what amounts to. And she was like, this is so shocking. And I was like, if you think this is shocking, this is every day in the United States. So we can't just dump everything on these Russians and be like, look at this. I showed her a clip about how OnlyFans filters into AIPAC, and she was pretty shocked. And I think that's enough for one day. You can't just come out with a fire hose with Russians and just spill all the stuff you've seen on X in the last 3 years. They're not going to take kindly to that. You saw how long it's taken for us to sort of teach people in the United States, and it's not just about that one group. It's about to kind of teach people to look behind the veil of these things. It's taken all of this time. The genocide started in 2023. So, it takes time to sort of push public opinion or even push discourse to where it can even talk about those things. So that's always going to be a work in progress. But yeah, what do you think, Chris, about why they don't sort of...
They do call it out. It's just that it's not always front and center, but they do. They talk about the Americans who supported the Nazis. They talk about the Europeans. They talk about the Israelis and their alliance with the Nazis. So yes, it's a reality. It's just maybe not as much as we want, but it exists. It exists, especially if you go a little deeper.
I have spoken to Tony. I did a series of spaces on the large account on his most recent book, Zionism During the Holocaust. He's so funny. What a great, great writer. But yeah, they're on the big account if you want them. Tony.
Is that Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu?
I have no, I think maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting.
Anyway, arigato and arigato to all of you guys. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Send Chris off to bed, and we will see you guys on Wednesday with the Latin America Fiesta.
Lots of love to you all.
With Larry Johnsono. We love him. You guys have a good rest of your weekend. And if you're in the United States, I know it's not the greatest, but try to take some time this Memorial Day to remember what it actually is about and try to push away all of the nonsense from this regime and just online social media. So enjoy your long weekend. Enjoy the extra day of market closing and another day of Trump mood swings. We will see you all on Wednesday.